Welcome. Please join us in the chat. Say hello. Tell us where you're from as we let some more folks trickle in before we get started. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Diamond Reynolds, the former girlfriend of Philando Castile, checking in from Minnesota. Thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you guys and with you guys. And I'm a little nervous, but thank you guys for being here.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so join us in the chat and tell us where you're from, where you're joining from. Say hello. We're going to let a few more folks trickle in, and then we'll start with some announcements and get right into this conversation today, which we're super excited about sharing with you. Yes, Salt Lake City. Okay. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. It's always great to see some folks from different places. Hello, if you're joining in, please join us in the chat and tell us where you're joining in from. We're excited to have you here. Say hello, and we're about to get started. Excellent. Joining from Albuquerque, New Mexico. All right. Hello, Pasadena, California. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. So we're going to get started. We're really looking forward to this. Okay, another Minnesotan. Is that the right word? Thank you for joining us from Maple Grove. How exciting. My name is Kimberly Seals Allers. I am a journalist, a maternal and infant health strategist, founder of Earth, which is like the word birth, but we dropped the B for bias, a new Yelp-like review and rating platform for Black and brown women and birthing people to leave and find reviews of OBGYNs, birthing hospitals, and pediatricians. I am also the host of Birthright, a podcast about joy and healing in Black birth. I am so honored to have this conversation today, really as part of our celebration and launch of Earth, which is now available in the Google Play and the Apple App Stores. Earth is a tool to address what we know is happening in racism and bias in maternity care. And that's critically important for us to really end the Black maternal mortality rate, the Black infant mortality rate. But we also know that racism and bias exist in other institutions and other systems as well, including the institution of policing in this country. And we've had to live through that most starkly. And so it's really important this weekend. Yesterday was the anniversary of Breonna Taylor's the 1 year since she was murdered by the police, for us to center and continue to talk about the ways that police violence impacts not just the victims and of course their family members, but also the impact it has on Black maternal health, Black people in general, our children, our communities, right? The ripple effects are just continue and continue, continue. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today and with these amazing group of folks. First, I just also want to thank BIMFA, the Black Mothers Breastfeeding Association, for being a co-sponsor for today. They do such great work to encourage breastfeeding, and we have worked together on many great projects. So thank you to BIMFA. I want to thank Derek Forjor, an amazing artist. If you hadn't seen on social media, he had an amazing exhibit that was around the curse of maternal grief. He had a painting that depicted several of the mothers of those we have lost to police violence or state violence. And this was one of the things that was part of the exhibit was this church fan. And so Derek has donated a number of these. So anyone in attendance.
Thank you for
Yeah, it's
that.
so beautiful. And Philando's mom is on here, as is Breonna Taylor's mother. It was a beautiful painting, and this is a beautiful representation and a tribute to that. So everyone who is in attendance today, tomorrow you get an email with a link so that you can receive yours as a thank you for joining us today. So thank you to Fordreau Studio for donating these fans as our thank yous for joining today. I want to thank the California Healthcare Foundation, which is the funder for Birthright, a podcast about joy and healing, because at the other spectrum of this is joy. And I believe really strongly that we have to center joy in our fight for birth justice and our fight for racial justice, that we never forget about our joy. And so we will be thinking about not just the problem, but also solutions and the healing journey that happens because of that. So please learn more about Birthright, the podcast, at birthrightpodcast.com. Please subscribe and listen as we really center positive birth stories and healing as part of what we all need to do, one in our birth work, but also in this larger conversation. And then the last thing I want to say before I introduce the panelists is just to remind folks that this is a safe space, that this is a Black woman-led space today, and this is not a space for judgment, for negative comments, for harassment of any sort. And so we hope that you've come in the spirit of learning for your own learning journey. Racism is, and police violence is, a public health issue. It is a maternal health issue. So we hope that you are here in the spirit of kindness and learning, and centering storytelling as an important part of how we move this needle forward in our work. And so I'm very grateful for that and ask that you would honor the safe space that we're creating for this dialogue today. So with that, I would love to introduce our amazing panelists and our amazing hosts who will be here today. But first, I wanted to introduce, the storyteller that we're centering on this learning journey, Diamond Reynolds. Diamond Reynolds is an advocate, an activist, a mom of two, and she is really on a mission to help end police violence. As you may know, in 2016, Diamond and her 4-year-old daughter were in the car when her boyfriend, Philando Castile, was murdered by the police. And she had the thought to live stream it on Facebook. And since then, Diamond has been a voice for police reform and helping others, particularly mothers and their children, heal from trauma. So we're looking forward to centering Diamond and her story in our conversation today. Diamond, wave to everyone so they know. Yes, there you are. Great.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm excited to speak with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Diamond. And, next we have Miaman Quigley. And Miaman is a research project manager at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health, where she works in the Anti-Racism Research for Health Equity, the Center for Anti-Racism Research for Health Equity, with Dr. Rachel Hardiman, who, as many of you know, does amazing work that's centered around these connections between police violence and Black maternal health. Miaman, is a public health professional with previous experience working as a community schools manager, where she implemented a holistic approach to health, well-being, and education. She has spent some time working at the Brooklyn Center Police Department as a community liaison. Miaman is a mother of 3 boys and graduated from St. Catherine University in St. Paul, Minnesota, with a Bachelor of Science degree in public health. And she strives to dismantle structural racism to improve the health and well-being of the Black community. So we're really honored to have Miaman in this conversation today. And then last but certainly not least, I am really honored to have Angela Lewis join us here today. Angela was born and raised in Detroit, a city where I have spent a lot of time working on birth and breastfeeding issues, so we'll have to talk about that. And she received her BFA in acting from the University of Michigan. She lived in New York City, my home city, for 13 years as a working actress before marrying and relocating to Los Angeles. She currently stars as Aunt Louie on FX Snowfall, which comes on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. If you haven't watched the show, you need to spend time, because it's a binge-worthy show. It comes on at Wednesdays at 10 and then the next day on Hulu. And she has created the Moonchild Foundation, to help combat Black maternal mortality and is a girl mom to a beautiful and precocious toddler. So we're really honored to have Angela with us today, hosting this conversation, excited to learn more about the foundation and the work, and for us to have this conversation. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Angela.
Thank you so much. I am really excited and so honored to be here to join in on this conversation. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to jump right into it. So this conversation is about Black motherhood and Black maternal health and all the ways that it has it's been impacted by systems beyond our control, right? And so, Diamond, I would like to start with you. You were really a pioneer, the first person to use social media, and in your case, Facebook, to show the world what police violence looks like. And so thank you for being able to be in the frame of mind in that unthinkable moment, to be able to show everyone, what happened on July 6th, 2016, when the love of your life, Philando Castile, was murdered by the police, and with your daughter in the car, no less. So, but what we don't know, besides for a few sensational headlines, is what has life been like for you and your daughter since that day?
Thank you, Miss Angela, um, for giving me the opportunity to have the floor first, and for everyone on the call. What life has been like for me and Dayana since 2016, it has been very traumatic. It has been detrimental. It has been life not only changing, but altering. But it has been a journey of healing also, in the process of learning so many things about the system and the government and myself, and just that emptiness of not having the support that I would have liked to have, but didn't so much receive. So for me, me and Phil were co-parenting Dayana. He was not the father of Dayana. However, he played a tremendous role in Dayana's life from even before she was born. And with that, a lot of people didn't agree with that, which is why I feel my life has been so traumatic since the current events.
Wow. Okay. Would you like to speak a little more about that? About how? Yeah, just go into further.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, since live streaming at that time, live stream wasn't a feature that everyone was hip to or prone to. It was absolutely a new feature that had just came out on Facebook. And in that time, there was a lot going on in the world. And with Phil being someone that was more than just my lover, is what I call him, because he was more than just a lover, he was my friend. Um, the police taking him away and there being no accountability, the community needed someone to blame. You understand what I'm saying? And because there is no police accountability in the judicial system for African American people and people of descent, that the community immediately attacked me based off of the narratives that the media put out there. So PTSD was one of them. My daughter was diagnosed. I was also diagnosed with PTSD. ADHD, my daughter was diagnosed with. She didn't have those type of mental illnesses or health concerns prior to losing Phil. Anxiety, fear for police, hard to build relationships, and just not having Black therapists or Black providers and people that could relate to us caused our healing to take a little bit longer in what we were trying to do.
I see. Miamon, how does what Diamond is saying track with your research, and what do you know about how trauma impacts Black people's health and well-being and policing as a social detriment of health?
Yeah, thank you, Diamond, for sharing that with us. And again, I'm honored to be in this space with you all today. And I think trauma impacts us all, but while everybody experiences trauma in some way in life, not everyone has the access and resources to and care to address it. And I think Diamond really hit on an important topic, which is the barriers to mental health services. You know, transportation for people of color when they watch Diamond's video that she live streamed, transportation, not even knowing what mental health services are available to us, but then like the barrier of a culturally responsive service. Somebody can seek mental health services, but you're seeing a practitioner that doesn't understand your lived experiences and the trauma you're going through as a mother with Black babies. It's not going to be, it's just not going to be impactful. When we see officer-involved shootings in our Black and Brown communities, that triggers stress time in and time again, and especially those for Black women who are pregnant and enduring this trauma-related stress. It can shorten their length of gestation, the baby's birth weight, and increase risk of adverse outcomes. Racism is a public health crisis, and police brutality is a public health issue, and really a social determinant. We cannot ignore, in our efforts to achieve health equity, the fact that these social determinants are a cause of white supremacy and systemic oppression. And Black people are killed 3 times, or are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than their white peers. And that's a social determinant, which really shapes mental health disorders because of the environments in which Black and Brown people live. So this conversation is just so extremely important when we talk about trauma and the lifelong trauma that the system's causing for Black and Brown people.
Yeah. Miamon, you spent some time embedded with the Minnesota Police. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, so I spent about 2 years working with the Brooklyn Center Police Department as a community liaison. So Brooklyn Center is a first-ring suburb that borders Minneapolis and is in Hennepin County, which is the largest county in Minnesota and an extremely diverse community. So I was hired by Hennepin County, embedded in the police department to bridge the gap between our immigrant, refugee, and Black, Indigenous, people of color community, working alongside the police officers and then community members, trying to bring, work alongside our community, bringing health and human services, local public health resources to the community, and then also trying to educate our patrol officers with the community in which they were serving. And I think a focus was really community policing, right? Which is typically presented as a unique model, oftentimes in Black and Brown communities, that aims to build trust between the community of color and the police department. However, it really creates a false narrative that police can solve structural issues through building partnerships, because in reality, it's just over-policing of Black and Brown people and has really only made the issue stemming from structural racism worse. And what I learned in a really short amount of time there is that, I worked with some really great people. We had some courageous conversations, many courageous conversations, but policing is a critical but under-acknowledged determinant of health, right? It perpetuates adverse health outcomes in our communities that already exist, that already experience health inequities. And in that short amount of time, I just realized that police is working exactly how it was intended to, and that's really due to structural racism.
Wow.
Wow, that was really a word.
Yeah.
Really a word.
I just learned so much than just you saying that. I live in Minnesota and I never even knew that the police in Hennepin County was one of the largest police force that we had here. I don't even get into all that, but that was just interesting to learn.
Well, Diamond, how do you feel the police and your community at large have responded to you? Do you feel like you've been supported, or What have you and your daughter done to
I
heal?
feel like the police community, especially, have perpetuated this relationship between myself and the community. They have painted me out to be such a bad person that people would not give me a chance because they believe as to what they have learned, read, or saw based off of the false allegations that the police have placed against me. When all actuality is that I was born in my innocence. So when the police officer killed someone in front of myself and my 4-year-old daughter, never should my background, what I did in my life's past, what Phil did in his past, none of those things should have came about when a man's life was taken innocently by the police. And then the police want to police us. They want to get mad at me for going out telling my story to the point where they have antagonized me and put fear in my heart that every time a police officer gets behind me, my anxiety starts to flare. Not once has the police came out to any of my events and showed any, because I've put on multiple events for the community. They have yet to come and show any of their compassion or their empathy or sympathy or just to show any remorse. We know all police officers are not bad. We do know that. I do raise my daughter that. However, if every police officer I come in contact with is giving me what I feel like racial profiling and discriminating against me, then how is that going to make me and my healing to feel comfortable to know that I can trust the police when I have not had good experience with them? And then the community have not, based off of the allegations and having to blame someone and the police officer not being held responsible for his wrongdoings, that then I began to get the heat in the backlash of, why did you record it? Why did you live stream? Why didn't you help? Why did you get a settlement? Why? There's always these questionable doubts in people's minds, but they're not thinking as if they could be humans such as myself, and to think that how all of these things can cause trauma. They don't think that seeing someone get killed in front of you or your daughter will have an effect on you.
Mm. Yeah. Everybody, let's just take a breath on that one.
I'm sorry.
No, absolutely no apologies. This is no reason for you to be sorry. That's just a lot to take
And that's
in.
just one of the things, because
Yeah.
before this, obviously I've had trauma stream from childhood, but I never had the amount of trauma where I felt like witnessing something and seeing something that I had absolutely no control over, that my life was going to change detrimentally and my daughter's life was going to change. And it wasn't a good change. It wasn't a change for the better. This change was government strong, police drawn, and community. I feel like the community pushed it so much with the negativity and just believing what they see in here and what the police put out there, that no one even stopped to think, how is Diana doing in all of this? How is Diamond mentally healing? Yes, I'm healing, but is that even something that people even care about or worry about? Because these are things that we have to continuously teach our kids. If any of you have, and I know some of you have Black sons, African American, some young teenage boys, on how to react in a situation that you don't have any control over, how to react when you're getting bullied or when you're getting ganged up on by not just the media, but police officers, authority, the government. How do we teach our kids to persevere and be strong and self-heal when the world that we're living in is teaching us to self-deflect and to hate our creators and our people that are supposed to protect us? It's a brainwashing is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the element of community support is so important. I think that in these moments, we can see that, there are two potential responses, right? The coming together to support, which can aid in the healing, and then some of the more destructive narratives and behaviors that only isolate people further, right? And I can't even imagine what that was like for you and for your daughter. I know when we spoke before, you mentioned that she was bullied at school and she had a lot of trouble making friends, and and she was an innocent bystander and became a victim of and a target. And I think that you feel that you were a target as well for bringing this kind of national attention to your city. And for that, I apologize that you did not feel supported, by the community at large in that recovery process, because that's a lot to carry, and to have to carry it for yourself and your daughter. I think none of us can even imagine what that feels like. So,
And I just really feel like people cared more about the settlement than the well-being and the safety of my daughter and myself. No amount of money was gonna bring him back. No amount of money was gonna take away that void in our hearts and our mind and bodies and souls of him not being there. That money wasn't gonna replace the nightmares that we have or the constant interrogation and negative reaction that we get behind him being gone. I was forced into the limelight. I never wanted to be in the limelight. I never wanted to be my name attached to Phil in such a detrimental manner. You know, it has hurt my heart and deeply been hard for me even to think that all of these people are constantly being killed by the police, yet I was overlooked for going live and people just thought they took it as a joke because they seen money opposed for seeing justice, when people really don't understand is that we will never really get justice. Never, ever. As long as the government runs everything, we will never, the most you can take is money, because even the amount of money that you have will not even help you win a case, because your lawyers are going to take half of your money when they win the case anyway. Their justice, I don't know what people think justice is. Justice is like, oh, maybe someone being held accountable, someone getting XYZ amount of time in prison, not getting out, having to pay restitution, all of these things. But it's so much more than that. It starts with us. We're a part of the judicial system. We, us, people, taxpayers, civilians, Americans.
Yeah, and I think it's an important thing to think about because people focus on that. But what is the value on life? We had a very big announcement about George Floyd's family this week. And, that may feel or may look like justice, but is that really justice for his daughter, for his mother, for his brother?
They're going to need so much healing and therapy and African-American therapy. I think it's detrimental that we get more African-American specialists and therapists and psychiatrists and all of those things, because how can someone that has never been in my shoes help me heal from something that they never experienced? And I'm not just talking about police brutality. I'm talking about being Black.
Right. Well, that's an important thing that Mia-Mon was mentioning around the need for that. Dara, one of the things that's been interesting in our conversations, this thread about the extra scrutiny you received, as a Black mother, right? And people were critical because you and Philando weren't necessarily married. And so that, in a way, people tried to make your relationship less legitimate in a way because it was
disvalued me as a woman and a mother, because Phil wasn't the father of my child, 1. We were not married, 2. And 3, I wasn't accepted in the eye of the public because they didn't see fit as a woman having a child and a man being the father figure as Phil was to Diana. He was a father figure to her at the end of the day. However, people people painted that picture and wanted to see it and wanted to not support me because they felt, oh, she's not the mother of his child. She's not his wife. She doesn't deserve this. She doesn't deserve that. At the end of the day, there was a child in that car with bullets 2 centimeters away from her. I don't know if anyone knows how close that is, but that's really close.
Yeah, it's really close. And I think this idea of our motherhood constantly being under that white gaze, that concept of what is what is respectable. I know I've experienced that as a Black mother, just dealing with the health system with my own children. I'm curious, what about you, Angela and Mia Moan, as mothers? Have you experienced that our motherhood seems to undergo greater scrutiny as Black mothers?
Well, I will say that I know when I was pregnant with my daughter, it was the summertime. And I remember walking in Beverly Hills with I like to cut up t-shirts to work out in. And I had on my t-shirt and it was like cut up and so my belly was out. And in all other neighborhoods, I would get so many smiles and, oh, congratulations, mama. And in Beverly Hills, it was not that. Everybody was turning their nose up at me and looking at my belly. And it was like, what is happening right now? Like, I'm a beautiful pregnant mama right now. I'm glowing. Why are you giving me the stank face? So I always became super vigilant about wearing my wedding ring. Like, I just felt like, people are like judging me. And, if I don't have on my ring, what does that mean? And it was intense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, obviously nothing like what Diamond is experiencing, but I do think that, things happen on a macro and a micro level and everything in between. And if one person is being judged, one Black mother is being judged about this thing and another Black mother is being judged about something else, it's all related, and it's all detrimental to our health and the health of our babies, both born and unborn.
That is so true. Mia Moan, did you want to add? What's been your experience?
Yeah, I have 3 boys, and one of them I always call him my bonus baby. And so he came into my relationship with me and my partner. But I have 2 sons, and my first pregnancy was planned. My second was not. I'm West African, so even in our culture, that's we grew up in a very religious, faith-based culture, but my father-in-law got a terminal lung disease and my husband wanted to give him another kid. He just thrived on being a grandfather. And so, we kind of changed our plan a little bit. And I was 26 and every single time I went to an appointment without him, the way I was treated, the way I was talked down on, when I became pregnant, I knew I had to advocate for myself because historically, my mother, my sisters, my aunts, they told me about these disparities we see as Black women in healthcare. And sometimes when you get generational information from your mother, your aunts and older sisters, you're like, oh no, it's not that bad now. But it was hurtful and I was frightened. And so I can only imagine not having the support system I did. And I think what's so important is that I always say, like, I just can't believe this is 2021. Like, how are we still going through all of these just significant oppressions in our communities in 2021? But I think it's extremely important in healthcare that providers apply a critical race lens and practice and dig beneath the surface. The information's at their fingertips, literally. Not all families culturally and across our communities are going to be the standard of what white supremacy and these systems have said is what families look like. Our families are blended, our families are beautiful, and it's really just, it breaks my heart that, this is how her baby is going to remember. That was her father. And for the trauma that the community has put on this young, precious baby is just really unfortunate. And I think it continues to say the chronic stress that us as Black women endure, it does take a toll on our mental and physical health.
Right. I mean,
even if it's not physically us,
right.
We feel that.
You feel it. I know when I was pregnant, when I had my first child, I was not yet married. was also very afraid, didn't have a ring and would hide my hand on the bus, on public transportation, because I knew people looking at me. But, to carry that stress, I remember being legitimately afraid to have a boy. And I remember specifically praying to God that I would not have a boy, because I just did not know if I was prepared as a parent. I was 28, going on 29, as a person to raise a Black boy in the society. It was a real fear for me. And I literally prayed. So I got my girl first, and then I got my boy. But those types of things of when we're talking about the stressors of being Black and how these things compound. And then, of course, a year ago, after Ahmaud Arbery was killed and George Floyd was killed and Breonna was killed, I was in terror for my own boy who was on lockdown. The only thing he would do every day was go for a run. And now that one thing became something that literally terrorized me. And I distinctly remember being here in a meeting, giving an important presentation, and my son giving me a Post-it note, as he usually does, saying I'm going out, whatever. He'll put a little Post-it note behind the camera. But this time, because of what had happened, it was not such a little thing. And so I'm panicking, like, first of all, do you have your mask? But also, are you going to go on the route that we've agreed to? I got to remind him not to put his foot up. Don't have your headphones with the music to. Like, there are things I have to say to my Black boy before he leaves the house. And I didn't get to do that. And I was literally, and I'm giving myself goosebumps because I remember that moment. I was literally in terror.
How old is your son, Miss K?
He's 16. He's 16.
Oh,
And
you got a 16-year-old. Yeah, I would be really worried.
yeah. And
And
so
my kiddo's 8, and now in Minnesota it hit 50 degrees, so we're living our best life. The sun's shining again, everybody's coming back out, and
In here, Dayana's 9 now.
yeah.
In
And
here.
so my kids, he's gonna be 8, they're 5 and 7, and they found some water guns in the shed. We pull their bikes out, and I don't let them, not even in our own backyard. I think it's that age where it's like, no, you can't even just play with
I
water
don't even
guns in
allow
the
guns
backyard.
in my house.
And
My nephew and
they should be, they see the kids across the street doing that, and they want to go and run around outside, social distance, and do what they're doing. And I had to have that conversation with my babies, and it broke my heart. But it's like, at some point you're gonna go from being the cute little boy to the scary, and I don't know at what age that happens.
But you're a good mom for talking to them about that at such a young age, and then instilling it in them at a young age, so then when they get older, they can remember, hey, my mom told me that it's not good playing with guns, because back, sometimes people, they judge you and then they think, oh, he's going to grow up to be XYZ, even if that's not what the case is, because that you're going to make sure that your kids never have that lifestyle.
But that's a lot. That's a lot on a baby.
that's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, I just want to honor all of us. I still have goosebumps. Thank you for sharing that, Miamon. And just to honor the stress of Black motherhood, right? And to hold space for all the Black mothers in the audience today who are listening and having their own, reminders and goosebumps and kind of reliving the terror. And this is why when we talk about how pregnancy, birth, and even breastfeeding is different for us, these are the things, right? It's not that the 40 weeks, it's not like it's a medical thing. It is a cultural thing around the things that we have to deal with, the unique stressors that we have about our children. And it doesn't go away, right? My son is 16, yours is 6 and 8, you have a toddler, Diamond has a 9-year-old, like it goes on and on and on. And one thing that I want to say before we move on was that I remember, as I was recalling this, I had a memory of my mother sitting by the window waiting for my brother to come home. And he had got his first little car where he was in college, and my mother would sit at the living room chair looking out that window for him to come home. And it reminded me that this is not just something I'm experiencing, it's generational. Also, I probably learned it, but that my mother had the same thing, and she didn't talk to me about it. But I now vividly see her sitting on that couch when my brother was late. She would just sit there until he came home, and she'd be very worried. And so this is a generational trauma. This is something that is being passed down to us as daughters and as mothers for our own children. And, we have to create the space to heal. We have to create the space to heal. And,
I was just about to ask you, and how do we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that we have to create that, to your point, we can't, there's part of it that can be done with professional support. That's really, really important. We definitely need to destigmatize therapy in our
Yes,
community. We need to practice self-care. I think as Black women,
self-care.
yeah, as Black women, we are very good taking care of everybody else, and we almost own that like a badge of honor, but it really isn't. And that we have to look at our own self-preservation and care as a radical act,
Yes.
as an act of survival, and to be intentional about it. Not just the drink a glass of wine kind of thing. Although
Yeah, not go get your hair and nails done type of
right.
self-care. It's more on the inside. Like
Mhm.
I listen to affirmations. I've gotten into meditation. I've done all type of things like crafting, DIY projects, just reading books, even something I've never done. Like I've just been self-healing and self-reflecting by picking up a book and trying to read and get different outlooks on things. And those things have really helped me with my positive thinking and positive vibes and just getting out all the negatives so that I can open my heart for all the positive things that the universe is going to send.
Yes, yeah. And I think that's important, like developing a real practice around it. And because we have to. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is just the other things that we talked about that we can't control. Because I think part of what we experience when we interact is a result of stereotypes, right? The ideas that we're not married, we don't want our babies, there's not going to be a man around. And these are the things that we carry that we're constantly trying to combat, show that we're not that thing. And much of that is often shaped by media, even movies, Hollywood television, et cetera, et cetera. So I really wanted to ask you, particularly Angela, as an actor who kind of lives in that space, what do you think is kind of the story of Black mothers and even Black women in general that's being told by Hollywood? And, what is the implication? Where's it going?
Mm. Um, Here's what I know. I know that more and more Black artists, particularly women artists, are telling our stories so that our stories get more complicated, they get more layered, they get more truthful. So the stereotypes that have plagued us, since the beginning, uh, I believe that they're starting to fall away. Uh, I'm not saying that has happened completely. I don't know how long it's going to take before we're, seen as multifaceted people with diverse backgrounds and stories and experiences within certain categories or similar structures. Who knows how long that's going to take? But I do feel that change is happening, and it has had to have always been happening for it to be where it is now. I think now, though, with the internet and social media, things are able to happen at a more rapid rate. I think that we're able to communicate more. I think we're able as artists to communicate with our communities at large, and there's able to be a conversation about those things, and we're able to have platforms like this where we can, be a part of a conversation that's got artists and people in math and science and people in the social arts and social and politics. Like, we can all be together no matter what city we're in, what state, what country even. And I think that's helping. And so I just encourage everybody, tell your story. In the words of the late great John Singleton, tell your story.
Yes, yes, yes. Because we know that who's telling the story matters. When we look at shows that are created by us and for us, we see the nuances. I remember one of the most powerful things I remember from Ashonda Rhimes' show, Scandal, was something so simple, but it meant the world to me. And it was a scene where Kerry Washington was swimming. That's it. She was in the pool swimming. And she had a cute bathing cap and she was swimming. And that just, it meant so much because there's just around us being just around us swimming, there's so many stories, right? And our children can't swim. It took a Black woman to know that that was really powerful, to show us stinking swimming. I mean, so these are the things that we can capture when we're at the table as creators, when we're at the table as the producer, those who are in decision-making positions, and that when we get to tell our stories ourselves instead of what happens when other people try to tell our stories. I think that's so important because these little things shape how we're viewed, how we're seen, how we're valued, and we have a lot of myths to debunk, and media and television is just one way to do that. I wanted to ask you all, because I don't know if you saw this. I want to remind folks that soon we'll be taking questions. So please, if you're going to have a question, put it in the Q&A part, not the chat, and we'll take questions soon. But I don't know if any of you saw, there was a meme that was going around, and basically it compared what's happening to Black women within the medical system to what's happening to Black men under the police system. I mean, is that a fair or unfair comparison? Miaman, let's start with you. What do you think about that idea that what's happening to Black women in the medical system is similar to what's happening to Black men under the police state?
Yeah, and I think I get like the comparison, and I mean it is true. We know that there's significant disparities within our healthcare system. And I think that the only thing I want to say within the comparison the two is that I believe that when you see a officer involved shooting or one of our brothers or sisters being killed by the police, it's not as blatantly clear in the medical system, right? It's not like a single case, but I work alongside Dr. Rachel Hardiman, who, I might be a little biased, but she's brilliant and started doing research around the impact of police violence and its impact on maternal mortality. And Kim, you mentioned it, her research shows that if people have interactions with police officers that are negative, that translates into a lack of trust within our healthcare system. And these are people's lives we're talking about, right? Like babies before they're even born. And I also think it's important to note that exactly what you said around Black mothers, when they are pregnant, research is showing that they don't want to know if they're having a boy or girl until they give birth, because they know if they're having a little boy, that's going to add stress onto their pregnancy, which is already at greater risk because of our healthcare system and the disproportionate rates in which maternal mortality shows up. So, and I don't want to get into COVID right now, but I think it's really, really important for where we are right now to talk about, especially in my state. I follow numbers really closely. I follow the impacts of our community that's really being hit by COVID, and it's our community of color. And the vaccine plan rolled out, and you look at people living in poverty who are going to have higher rates of chronic diseases and yet less access to healthcare. And the vaccine rolled out, and if you look at the number of people over the age of 65, you're going to see it's 70% of mostly white people. So now you have a colorblind approach that they've done where they're leaving essential workers who don't have the capacity to work remotely and Black and brown communities unprotected. So I think, again, I want to be a little mindful when we compare our healthcare system to police brutality, but I think that there is significant disparities there, and especially when we talk about maternal mortality and women overall. I'll share my story real quick, is that my father passed away 4 years ago in a county hospital because he had state insurance. He passed away after a triple bypass surgery, and basically the insurance company was like, 3 days after, we're not paying for it. The hospital doesn't want to lose money, so discharged my father too quickly, and there was complications. And so we see that it's within our insurance systems.
Yes, it's definitely a lot of
overall
similarities.
healthcare. These disproportionate rates that don't care about our, it's almost like a criminalization of poverty. Your health doesn't matter because of, and that's what social determinants of health is. It's where you live, where you work, where you play, what's the environment like for these babies we're raising. And then also, in regards to healthcare, our education system, Diamond talked about having more therapists of color, more doctors of color. Well, I mean, it wasn't that long ago where Black people couldn't even practice medicine, right?
I think there's an important point in the chat just around that similarity around perhaps how we are valued. Angela, did you have a thought on that?
Man, yeah, I mean, my thought is just that it is heartbreaking to be reminded over and over again how devalued we are, and in, you know, so many capacities, you know, in every capacity of our lives, we are not valued. Like, how do we? That's why support and resources and getting those getting the support and the resources out to our communities are so important, is so important, because it's so heavy. Our lives are so heavy. And how do you then, as a mother, or an expecting mother, how do you then relax your body enough to open up to bring a life earthside in a safe way when your life is so heavy, you know, like
It is a lot. And I think that's, you know, that's what we're all kind of dealing with. And the how, right? And the how. And I think we're finding our way, making our way, you know, but we have to kind of keep going. And, you know, we can't not try. I think we all agree with that. Like, you know, as particularly as it relates to our self-care, as it relates to our mental healing, we have to keep going. And some days I don't even know how, but I know that I just got to try. And sometimes, you know, we also have to give ourselves grace. I think that, you know, they're the things that we thrust upon ourselves, the strong Black woman thing, and that's not necessarily helpful for everybody. So we also have to dispel some of our internal cultural taboos that make things heavy, while we continue to press on and resist and dismantle the external things that are going on.
Yeah.
And I want to just quickly go back and touch on, you know, healthcare is to, you know, I think the meme you're referring to is like healthcare is to Black women as policing is, and I want to say, like, yes, you know, I'm just looking at the comment in the chat that the systems are the systems are they're both built on white supremacy, and so yes, there is going to be the disproportionate rates of our Black and brown people who are supposed to be being cared for and or protected at greater risk. And so, yeah, I do agree with that opinion in the chat. I just wanted to comment.
Yeah. And also, this is why Earth exists, right? Because we have this bias, because we have this racism. And this is why we're hoping that technology can be one tool for us to bring transparency and more accountability to this medical system, so that we can start letting each other know where we are receiving good care, where we are not, and that we start lifting up more community-centered tools to deal with this disparate care that we know exists out there. Angela, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah. I'm going to take a second to, if I may, talk about my foundation, because I think this is the perfect time. My foundation, Moonchild Foundation, is starting a new program. We're going to be working first with Kindred Space LA, which is the first Black birthing center in South LA. But my dream is that any birth center, any birth worker can be a part of this program. And basically, there's two branches. There is a multi-tiered scholarship program, so that we can be able to provide things like, you know, breastfeeding class, birthing 101 class, a doula, a birth doula, a postpartum doula, like all the things that an expecting mom might need for a safe, calm, healthy pregnancy, prenatal.
Sounds like a supportive app, a very supportive app.
Yes.
Or a project, supportive project.
And then the other branch is a matching program where a woman who can afford what she needs to be able to come into the program and say, okay, so I'm going to get this, 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 and this. And then she can either sponsor a woman who needs it anonymously, or we will have a corporate sponsorship put in place so that a woman who does not have the same means can still have the same services. Because, my experience while I was pregnant, my birth was beautiful, but it was nothing like what I had planned. And it was not lost on me afterwards that I spent a grip of money to deliver my baby safely and as naturally as I possibly could. And I was just
Were
like,
you supposed to have a water birth?
I was.
So
Yeah.
was I both times. And the second time they told me I was overweight and that they didn't give me the proper measurements and tell me that I had to be a certain amount of weight to receive a water birth. And then the first time with Diana, they told me that they didn't give me the proper, like you have to get all type of STD checks and all type of stuff in your third trimester. They didn't give me all the things I needed in my third trimester, so I couldn't get my water birth. And they put me in the water both times and took me out the water and looked at my chart and said I was too fat and I didn't get the right procedures done. It was a nightmare on Elm Street.
So many barriers.
And I had a natural birth both times as well.
Wow. Yeah, my baby, she went long, so I ended up having to be induced. And luckily, I worked with a midwife who has privileges in a hospital. So I went way out to Whittier to have my baby because it wasn't an emergency. But, without my birth team, that could have been a whole other experience, and that's not lost on me. And it's not lost on me that prior to going into the hospital, I did everything to induce naturally. I went to reflexology. I had like 5 sessions of acupuncture and like
don't tell me you was drinking castor oil and running up and downstairs.
No, I did not do that, but
Sex. They say the sex helps.
yeah,
I heard, but
I did it. I had sex. I ate a salad twice, like everything. And
All
she
the things.
not coming out, all the things. But it was not lost on me that I had, I've been blessed to be on this TV show for 4 years now. And I had some extra money so that I could go to the acupuncturist. And I had resources and, people telling me, oh, you can go to the acupuncturist, because a lot of people don't even know that, And so you should not have to be, rich or, well off or have a whole lot of money, period, to get the education and the resources and the support that you need.
And they're out here. They're definitely out here. We just got to have them more visible to people so that they can know how to get those resources. Because that's the thing. People know that they're out here, but they're so hard to get. So I'm glad that you have something that we can promote and educate people about, so that if they do need a birth plan or a doula, because I also had some of those things when I was pregnant with Diana as well, and they really help for not having a lot of family support and things like that, or just not a lot of education about water births and postpartum, which are totally natural, but people just sometimes don't take it as severely as they should.
Right.
And
you gotta navigate the medical system.
Yeah. Is there a website for your foundation yet?
Not yet, but you can go to my Instagram at Love Angela Lewis, LUV Angela Lewis, to stay posted, because it'll all be there.
Okay, good. All right.
Well, I will do that, Sister Angela. Thank you.
We all will do that, Sister Angela. We are going to move to questions soon. But we did have another person who is a survivor of police violence that we wanted to bring up. Do you want to introduce her, Angela?
Yes, this is Anjanette Davenport Hatter from my very own Detroit, Michigan. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Anjanette, for joining us. For those who don't know, Anjanette is also, she is a native Detroiter, but she's a survivor of police violence. For more than 3 years, she has been battling anger, shame, and resentment. But Anjanette is now channeling that energy into her anti-racism work, where she's addressing these issues through implicit bias trainings and having candid conversations about racial bias and its negative impact on health outcomes in marginalized communities. Anjanette, thank you for joining us. Tell us your story.
Well, first of all, I'm so honored to be in the presence of Black female leaders in this space. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me this opportunity to share my story for the very first time in such an open way. And so my incident took place at a local college campus where I was invited as a guest lecturer. And this particular college campus has a high prevalence of policing Black bodies. And so I was dressed up, I had a briefcase, and I looked like I was present and ready to handle official business. However, the police officer involved, he didn't think I was the right skin tone, apparently, which gave them the right to basically treat me as an object and not as a human being. And so I had multiple encounters with this particular officer, but I was buckled into my seatbelt in the vehicle during the time of the initial assault. So I was unable to be maneuvered out of the vehicle. And so they just began yanking, on my wrists and yanking on my arms to pull me out of the vehicle. And then eventually they reached in and unbuckled my seatbelt to pull me out of the vehicle and continue the assault. And I was like a helpless rag doll, just being manipulated and pulled in all kinds of directions. And, there were students who were walking by who witnessed this incident, a Black woman, a mother, dressed up for business and being assaulted on the sidewalk like a common criminal. I was humiliated and I was fearful for my life. And during the assault, sort of like Kimberly, how you were talking about the talk you have with your son, I remember the conversations that my father would have with my brothers growing up about how to survive, a police encounter, and make it home alive. And so I quickly transitioned, from that fight or flight mode, and I began implementing those strategies. Don't resist, be cordial, answer the questions respectfully, as they were being barked at me, during my assault. And all of a while, there were college students just walking by, watching, as this happened. And all I can think about was, I need to pick my kids up from school soon. I just was thinking, I need to remain alive so I can pick my kids up from school. So I ended up suffering, sprains on both my wrists, and I had to wear a wrist splint for several weeks. And of course, additional trauma that, caused me to really take advantage of my of therapy. I'm in therapy every other Thursday without fail. And so when doing my work on implicit bias, I really think about my experience and how racial bias and racism in all aspects of culture and institutions and how they support white supremacy and encourages violent behavior against Black bodies. And so I make it my purpose to really educate professionals and community members about how to mitigate these experiences and ensure that the focus is on uplifting, the community and improving, health outcomes in marginalized communities, and really just empowering, those to find their voice and to basically just demand better. So thank you for this opportunity to share, my experience.
Thank you, Sister Anjanette. And I'm so sorry that it's me, Miss Diamond Reynolds. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that traumatic situation. It was very unfortunate that you had to tell your story through going through it. However, someone such as myself that also dealt with a little bit of police brutality. I just want to let you know that you are victorious. You are not a victim. You are victorious, okay? You have a testimony now. And you not only have a testimony, but you live to tell your story and to make a change and be a difference. See, a lot of people always want change without being the change. And you have started your healing process when you first began to know that you are not the cause of this. This has been something that has been going on for centuries. So I just want to tell you that I am so proud of you and that I love you. And I thank you for doing this work, and do not give up and do not stop telling your story. And to know that I am always here for you whenever you need me for support, moral support, for advice, or anything that I can help with. Just know that you are a phenomenal Black woman. You are, sister.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Diamond.
Yeah, this is so powerful.
Thank you for sharing your story as well. I see
Thank
some
you.
of the comments.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things, AJ, and I want to just acknowledge you for and thank you for, entrusting us with sharing your story publicly for the first time. And I think that, we are reminded that who we are is not protective, and that being dressed for work and looking professional, to clearly not look like a threat doesn't even matter. And like all the
Absolutely.
things that we can try to do and still they can fail, and we could be on the
Never enough.
yeah,
Never enough.
we can be on the other side. And I think it's enraging, and it's just sobering because these are the few things that we think we do have that might help, and then we're reminded that they actually might not.
Right.
So I'm so proud of you. And again, thank you for trusting us in this space, for sharing for the first time. I know that,
Thank all of you, sisters. Thank all of you. All of you. Just keep fighting, keep telling y'all stories, and just we have to be there for one another. This isn't over. I'm sure there's going to be more like us, but if we can provide the healing to ourselves, then we can provide the healing and the nurturing that everyone else needs to be okay.
yes, that's so true. We have to be the demonstration of what we need because it's not out there. We have to model it. Angela Miamon, anything you want to say before I move to questions? I want to be mindful of time, but I wanted to just give everybody a chance to reflect on AJ.
Yeah, no, I think I'm excited to go into question and answer, and be in communication with the audience.
Okay, great. Miamon, I saw you on mute.
Yeah, no, thank you, AJ, for being here and sharing your story. And I'll echo what Miss Angela said, and just I want to give our community members an opportunity to discuss with us. So
Yeah. Okay, great. So if you have a question, you can pop it in the Q&A section, please. We do have one question from Angela, who's thanking us, but what can we do to support essential entities, not individuals, that are actively engaged in the fight and the struggle to alleviate, mediate oppressive forces working against Black motherhood? So we're talking about what can be done with the organizations. You're right. I mean, much of this conversation has been about what we can do individually, but we're only people, right? What can be done for the organizations? I mean, that's a great question.
I mean, I think
Go ahead.
I think that everybody has their own lane, right? You show up the way sorry guys, my mom. We show up the way we show up, and not everybody shows up the same way. So if it's your thing to volunteer, find the organization that speaks to you and go offer your time. If you can write a check, organizations need money to provide resources and to get the word out there. Write your checks like consistently, like get on auto pay or
there's so much stuff that they can do. Any petitions that are out there, there's always petitions people can sign to help getting bills passed, getting laws changed, We have to not wait for election day to be the voices and to be the change. Anytime that there's an opportunity for us to get out there and let our voices be heard and sign a poll, a petition, get out there, donate your time. I don't care if you're cleaning out your closet and you need to get rid of a whole bunch of old clothes that some of y'all know y'all need to get rid of. There's people a lot more less fortunate than you that would appreciate those things. Just getting out, donating your time, getting out there, making sure that people know that you feel, like you said, money helps and it goes a long way. But I don't want the world just to always think that money is the only thing they can do to help. There's so many other things you can do to help, opposed to just giving money. I don't want them to just think the Black culture and the Black community are money hungry like they are. Yes, it helps our families in poverty in our communities, in our schools, and our healthcare systems. But there's so many revolutionary things that we can do. Think about all the things that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and all of our great ancestors and brothers that died for us to be here, to even voice how we feel today. Get out in those streets. Make it be known that we demand change, and with change comes justice, and with justice comes accountability. So we have to start holding ourselves to a certain standard so that they can start taking us a little bit more seriously. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Diamond. And I think that that's so important for us to think about all the ways, because if we're going to dismantle this, it's not going to be one thing. It is going to be a multiple things. People working on the policy level, people working on laws, people writing checks, people doing community service. But I think also the storytelling, right? Like, how do we change the story of Black motherhood? It's by telling the story of Black motherhood, and not just one version of it, but all the different pieces. And for us to demonstrate that within each other, right? It's like we have to model what we want in the world. And if we aren't doing it for each other, then it's not going to happen anyplace else, right? And so how can we create more support? How can we create more safe spaces for these dialogues? How can we, do these other things as well? Go ahead, Angela.
I was going to say, and find a program in your community for your babies that are teaching, Black history, and that are teaching all those things that they're not getting in the schools. And if there's not a program out there that you like, start one, for your baby and your neighbor's baby, and for them to be learning about each other together, and about history, and about self-empowerment.
Yes, and you would be so surprised, you guys. Dayana literally goes to a predominantly white school, but she finds herself educating these white kids. She's always arguing about Democrats and politics. Don't ask me why fourth graders are talking about this type of stuff. She's always telling me, my white friends were scared to do this and do that, but I told her, just be yourself. People are going to accept you if you be yourself and not try to be someone else. So what we instill in our kids, and the roots and values and history that we teach our kids, just know that our kids is going and teaching it to their Chinese friends and their white friends and their Mexican friends. And that right there is changing systematic 0714. That right there is changing systematic issues, because you got to think about it. If our children is the future, and what we put into our children is what we get back, then we need to be responsible for putting more resourceful information into our children that they can actually benefit and learn from. So when they are in school, we don't have to depend on these teachers to teach our kids about race and our ancestors and politics and Democrats and all that, because those aren't things that teachers should have to teach our kids, right? It would be nice if the system could give them proper tools so that they can properly teach them. But however, we have racists teaching our kids, right? So we have to be the strong ones to provide that knowledge to our kids, and depend on our kids to go back and put that knowledge into the universe so that it can be like a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we stop it from children and it escalates.
Yeah. Well, and she was just being herself, right? And sharing who she is. I want to.
No, I be telling her, don't be talking to people like that, because they might not feel that in their family. You telling them what to do.
They always got to know those boundaries. But when they're young, they're excited and they want to share it with the people that they're friends with. There's a great question here for Miaman. As a community liaison between community and police departments, what did you find to work or not work? What do you also see opportunities in community liaisons in healthcare? That's a great question. Thank you, Cassandra.
Yeah, I think as a community liaison, I think that one thing that I'll say is our communities really do want to understand policing. Like especially when we look at our high demographics of East and West African, Latinx, they want to understand policing. And I think oftentimes it looks so different in other countries, and when they come here, what that looks like. But I will say that, for me, what I learned is that there's police departments that are trying, right? They really want to work alongside community, and even Brooklyn Center. Now, when I was there, I was telling them, like, you have to have kind of like a mental health, or not necessarily even a social worker, but like a practitioner to go along on certain mental health calls for de-escalation, because there was continuous calls for mental health and a lot of officer-involved shootings that ended in murders. And after I left, that same exact thing happened. And now they're embedding a mental health practitioner into the police department. But this could have been prevented because they knew the house they were going to. They had received at least 10 calls to that person's home prior. So I'll say, to be honest, I really didn't learn a lot that I didn't already know. It was just interesting seeing it from the inside out. And again, this is by no means talking bad about the police department I worked in. They were doing everything that they felt that they could do, but at the end of the day, it's not working. The system needs to be dismantled and reset. And then the second part of your question quickly here is, what do you find to work and not work? Do you all see opportunities as a community liaisons in healthcare? Absolutely. I think I'm kind of over the word, implicit bias training and implicit bias versus explicit bias. We need anti-racist training. We need anti-racist education. And I think within healthcare, what we need is for our healthcare providers to understand that they need to stand up against victims of state-sanctioned police brutality. Like these victims are going to end up in their hospitals, and we can just decrease the amount of people coming in if we look at it as what it is, which is police brutality. And so, and as people become clinicians, nurses, various type of providers, they take an oath. And I think that there's rigorous training that they have to do in regards to meeting, to not have malpractice. And I think anti-racist practice should be part of that standard curriculum and testing to be able to care for our communities, because that way we'll know that Black and Brown people are also humans and a part of that collective system of overall health and well-being. So, but I definitely think that a type of role as a community liaison for measurable outcomes, especially in healthcare, would be beneficial, extremely beneficial. So
Critical. And I just want to add, one of our goals with Earth is really embedding it into systems so it becomes that tracking and accountability mechanism. If you're getting an amazing anti-bias training from someone like AJ, how do you know that it's actually impacting the patient experience, right? And that's where the Earth reviews can actually be a monitoring and a tracking mechanism. So it's not just something that happens and people just check the box and move on, but we literally can see if it's working. If it's not working, then we need to do something else, right? And so with Earth, we are really trying to embed that. We ask specific questions around how, what it looked like. Was it dismissiveness about your pain? Was it lack of eye contact? Was it a rude comment? Was it a diagnostic test that didn't happen? So we can literally start decoding bias. So it's not just this abstract conversation or an online test. It's like, no, we had 10,000 women, 5,000 of them said their pain levels were dismissed. This percent said this, and we can start really zoning in on what those behaviors look like so that we can start targeting those things. Really, really important. I want to honor the question around support for Diamond. Her Cash App, Diamond, do you want to put your Cash App in the chat, please? For those,
yeah, if I could put my Cash App in the chat. How do I do that?
You and your daughter. I also want to add Diamond's website, thediamondreynolds.com. is a place where you can learn more about her work. Pretty soon, she'll be opening up her little online, I won't say little, she'll be opening up her online shop where she will be selling the things that her and her daughter are creating as part of their healing journey. I've seen some of the things, if you want a bedazzled phone case or Crocs, Diana is really using her art and creativity as part of our healing. And so I hope that we will check back and support Diana and Diamond on their healing journey with these beautiful products that they make custom made for people. Really thinking through the different ways that we heal. Yes, it is talking, but some of it is doing, right? And we may have an outlet that we can use as part of our healing process. And so just want to keep an eye on that. And remember to check out Diamond's website at thediamondreynolds.com, where you can learn about her work and also where she's really building her advocate and activism platform as a speaker, and looking to talk more about healing from trauma as a mother and for her child. Angela, you want to take us into a wrap? Maybe we'll close with one final question to Miaman, since Diamond's sharing.
Miaman, what would you say is the most important thing that we all need to know or to remember about racism as a Black maternal health issue? What's the one thing or two?
You know, and I think I kind of touched on this prior, but I think in regards to Black maternal health, and Angela, your organization, I'll speak directly to an organization that's similar here to that, and that's the Anti-Racist Research Center that just launched this month or last month at the University of Minnesota, where we'll be studying really how to measure. It's a multi-dimensional measure of structural racism and how it shows up in our communities, and really so we can take that research and compare it to police brutality and how it impacts mothers and their children and long-term health outcomes. And then I'll also say that, you know, Roots Birth Center in North Minneapolis, which is a community of color that serves a lot of our young African-American mothers, that if anybody wants to support that organization that's locally here, I think I saw somebody from Minnesota. It's really the only healthcare system that really has a doula and then follows birthing people 6 weeks postpartum. So usually, or 4 6 weeks. So 1 week, they'll do a home visit, and then weeks 2, 3, and 4, baby and mother come in, where usually it's just the baby or the mother goes in 6 weeks postpartum, right? There's that continuity of care. So I think what's really important is that we just, like I mentioned before, thinking about anti-racist practice and how we can hold these institutions and organizations accountable. Again, Black mothers and babies are dying at 3, and in our Indigenous Black mother or Indigenous mothers are also dying at 3 times higher rates as their white peers. And this racism is a public health crisis. And I think that we really just need to continue to work together to dismantle the current system that continues to impact our marginalized communities.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miaman. Angela, as a new mom, do you have any last thoughts around this issue and what we've discussed today?
I think that it's important for us to find joy, because our babies are not only watching us, but they're feeling us, you know? And so we have to really find where we can really feel joy so that our babies can feel it and know that they are safe, or feel like they're safe, until it's time to have those conversations, and even through those times, you know, because once you start having those conversations about what the outer world is, how the outer world is experiencing them or seeing them, it's even more important, or equally as important, to be able to support them in finding their joy, because without it, what do we have?
That's right. Finding our joy too. You know, I'm going to have you on the Birthright podcast. We can talk about joy.
Let's do it. I love talking about joy.
AJ, I wanted to come back to you. Sorry, I just wanted to ask, as a survivor, what do you want us to know about this issue, and what we can do to better support you and people like yourself, people like Diamond, people like Diana, who we always want to center as a child in this experience that we're talking about today. What thoughts, what would you like to say, please, AJ?
Well, I just would like to say that just removing the shame, there's the stigma that's surrounding victims or survivors of police brutality, and just that stigma, that you shouldn't have resisted, you should have answered the question, you shouldn't have done this, you should have done that, and just helping understand that, when your body is in stress, and there's a life or death situation, the first thing, the physiological response is fight or flight, because it's self-preservation. And when you're in the midst of a fight or flight situation, you're not making decisions as someone who's sitting on their couch watching the news, what would make. And so just destigmatizing police survivors, and just offering, more support and encouragement, around it. And so that people won't have so much shame, anger and resentment, and will share their stories more often so that other people can benefit and relate from it. And normalizing, mental health and therapy, for survivors, and how essential that is, so that not only are we feeling joy, but we're also piggybacking on Angela, we're also role modeling joy as well.
Yeah.
I think that's such a great way for us to kind of wrap discussion. I apologize that we ran over, but I really want to thank, this has been such a rich conversation. I know that we could continue talking about this whole topic, particularly as the ways that our motherhood journeys are being shaped by systems that are beyond our control, that weren't built for us, and continue to impact the experience that we're having, and also our children. So I want to just thank AJ for joining us and sharing her personal story. I want to thank Angela Lewis for joining us and sharing her platform with this issue. Please follow Angela at Love Angela, Angela, Luv Angela. I don't need to spell Angela, y'all know that part. But on Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to check her out on Snowfall, which is on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Was created by the great John Singleton, and also appears on the next day on Hulu. Really want to lift up Miaman Quigley and her work at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health at the Center for Anti-Racism Research for Health Equity. Thank you for doing this work. Please give our love to Dr. Rachel Hardiman for doing this work, and thank you for being a partner in this important conversation. You can follow Miaman on Twitter at, I have it here. Miaman, what's your Twitter handle?
M Queegs, MQUEEGS.
At M Queegs on Twitter. And I really want to thank Diamond for allowing her story to be instructive and informative, and for being vulnerable and being open, for sharing with us today. It has been an incredible journey to get to know Diamond and to better understand the ways that we as a community can support the victims of police violence, and the ways that we as mothers and Black mothers can really support each other without the shame and the stigma and the judgment. So important that we do that. Please continue to follow Earth App. I am K. Seals Allers on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Really want to thank everyone for joining us today. Remember that we are in a movement that is about co-liberation, right? When we think about Earth, when we think about, my podcast partner, when we think about the Moonchild Foundation, we think about Miaman's research, AJ's work, trying to create anti-racist organizations, Diamond's role in sharing her story and being an advocate. It is all about a unique understanding about co-liberation, and that we are not here to save others, but we understand that our futures are inextricably linked, and that ultimately, none of us are free until all of us are free, right? And that's how we are driven. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I look forward to continuing this conversation on all the socials and having this conversation again. Thank you for joining us, and please enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.